So, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our actually last online seminar and dialogue in Arctic Passion. Hard to believe this project is coming to an end, and this is actually now our last event for real in terms of what Apex has organized for Arctic Passion. And while people are still gathering and entering the room, making themselves comfortable, we would like to hear more from you, and we're gonna start a little survey. I hope you now see a survey which is opened up. We're asking you to answer a few questions. One is mostly about your career level, the sector you're involved in, also your relationship to the Arctic. And at the end, we also ask you to tell us a bit more about how you experienced you are in our today's topic on visual communication. And I see the first answers coming in, so it obviously works. Thank you so much. We're gonna come back to that a little later. So as part of Arctic Passion, we have organized a series of online seminars, and most of them were presenting and discussing topics all around the Arctic services we have created or worked on Arctic Passion. And all of these webinars or online seminar dialogue episodes are available on the Arctic Passion website and also on YouTube. So you're invited to tune in and have a look. And in fact, our most popular online seminar were the very first ones in spring 22, so quite a while ago. And these ones were on science communication, one on media production and another one on storytelling. And well, again, you can rewatch those recordings on our websites. And in any case, Lisa and I were really happy that we kind of close the circle today with another topic on science communication. I think a topic close to both of our hearts, personally speaking. So, given the high number of registrations to this online seminar, we had over 130 registrations today. It seems like there's quite some need and demand in the community when it comes to communication skills. And before we introduce our distinguished speaker today, in the framework of this whole webinar, we would love to hear a little bit more about you. Thanks to those who already answered the questions. I can see 84% have answered, so please still join the survey if you haven't done so yet. We further invite you to write us in the chat about you, so we can learn more about you. You're invited to give us your name and also your background, and also we would like to learn a bit more about your expectations and maybe your personal interest, why you have signed up for this online seminar. And I'm going to post mine now, and Lisa will also do the same for herself. So I hope we can learn more from you in the chat. Yeah, when I say we, I mean Lisa Gosset and myself. We are working for the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists at the Alfred Wegener Institute and in the Arctic Passion project. And here a few housekeeping notes before we actually get started. As this topic is relevant for many people around the world and on other continents, we're going to record this webinar, as you probably already have seen. So others can also rewatch it later or also for yourself, just so you be aware of that. The recording will be made available on the Arctic Passion and Apex website. We are welcoming your questions, of course. You can use the Q&A box for that. It will be most helpful. So you can, Lisa and I will go through them, all of them. You can also use the chat, of course, especially for comments or interactions. And further on, we also invite you, especially later in this online seminar, to raise your hand, and we call you on stage so you can speak up yourself for comments or questions when we have. Yeah, and with that, I hand it over to you.
Yes. Hi, everyone, also from my side. Before we get started, I would like to say some words about the hosts of today, which is APEX, the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists. And for those of you who don't know about Apex, we are a network of about 6,000 people interested in polar and alpine regions, coming from different kinds of disciplines, cultures, and also national backgrounds. We are a network from early career scientists to early career scientists, although scientists is not limited to scientists. It's more, early career professionals. We welcome also others interested and involved in polar regions and alpine regions. Apex is also a platform to make connections among these early career people and to exchange on various polar and alpine topics, also science communication as today, or different kind of career path, or just celebrate polar and alpine research on specific days during the year. In general, also education and training is one of the central parts of our network. And with this goal and also responsibility, we are involved in the EU project called Arctic Passion. And that's our second host of today. The Arctic Passion project is about to finish in the end of December. We were working on the improvement of the network of environmental observing systems in the Arctic. And to achieve this, we worked together with indigenous communities, local communities in the Arctic, scientific networks, and decision makers. And what we did more, concretely is that we worked on the improvement of the coordinational structure of an integrated observing system. We improved and extended scientific and community-based monitoring and data access. And we also advocated for the equity of different knowledge systems. We developed new services, and also one of the big parts of the project was also outreach and science communication. And that's what we would like to talk about today. And just how we can bring scientific results, numbers, and words more into visuals to make them more understandable for non-scientific audiences. And for this, we invited Hasan Abbas. He's the art lead at GRID-Arendal in southern Norway. His expertise is in visual storytelling through art, animation, illustration, and graphic design. With this, I really want to welcome Hasan as the speaker for today. We'll hear a presentation of Hasan, and then we'll open the floor to ask questions. So again, also a warm welcome to you all, and especially to Hasan, and I'll hand it over to you and stop sharing my screen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Hasan Abbas, and I work at GRID-Arendal as an art lead. My expertise is mostly in visual communication, but I have previously worked in animation, games, and comic books as an animator and illustrator. But I've been in science communication for the past 4 years, and that's what this webinar will be focused on. Just to start, the goal of this webinar is to give a basic understanding of why visuals matter in science communication and what role does it play. Also, just learn some basic tools and ideas about how to improve visual communication in scientific work. And lastly, gain some particular skills on collaborating with designers. And this webinar is divided in several sections. So we'll start with a little bit introduction to visual communication, and then touch on some fundamentals of visual communication, and go over briefly some of the user-friendly tools that you can use even without having a background in design. And then briefly, we'll talk about how and what steps are necessary in working with designers. And then we'll end with some reflection and questions. Now I will hand it back to Lisa and Josefina to share some results from the survey.
Yeah. Okay. 87% have answered. So I think I can stop this survey now, and I'm going to share the results. We have, as usually in our webinars, 6% early careers represented here, but also happy to hear we have, yeah, the rest of them senior or in between categories. And then we also look into mostly natural science when it comes to our backgrounds. As yeah, 70% are from natural science, a few from social sciences, a bit of health and NGOs as well. And most of us are working in the Arctic, but not living in the Arctic. That's interesting. So 68% are working in the Arctic. And when it comes to our experience in visual science communication, most of them, 65%, have answered they have a little experience. So some touch the topic already in one or the other way. We have 24% saying decent experience. I think that's quite a good result to connect with, to relate to.
Yes, I think particularly what I was interested in on the level of experience we have in visual design, and I see we do have one expert here, so I'll just bear with me here because I will start with the very basics, and then most of it is designed through my own perspective. So I think it will still be interested even if you have quite a bit of experience in this field. With that being said, let's start with by framing what do we mean by visual communication in the arena of science communication? What role visual communication plays, and why does it matter in science communication? Visual communication can be described in many ways and can encompass anything visual, but essentially, through my lens, is it anytime you use visual elements to communicate an idea or deliver a message. It could be done in combination of written or spoken words, where it is used as an aid to help convey the message more clearly or engagingly. Or it could be done solely using visuals. And next. So throughout time, it has been used in many different ways. Visual communication, it has been used in storytelling, which creates emotional engagement, inspires action, or it can shape social dynamics as well. And it's also used for practical purposes, like for delivering fast information. For instance, with traffic signs or signs you see at airport, it's fast, simple, clear information with very little room for miscommunication, which uses like universal, iconic visual motifs, which transcends any written or spoken language, basically. And then lastly is used when there is no other way to communicate something like complex as muscles in a human body, or like a huge array of data which is beyond human comprehension, and then through data visualization you give it a particular meaning in order to like communicate more efficiently and more clearly and in an understandable way. These are mainly the main three ways I look at visual communication in science communication. It's not just about making things pretty, but it's about enhancing clarity, retention, and support collaboration with non-scientific stakeholders. So basically to create a bridge between science and non-scientific world. Appealing design does help engage the viewer, but it should never be the sole purpose of using visual communication, at least in a scientific communication field. And now I would like to pause and for you to pause and reflect on what role does visual communication play in your work, or how do you wish to explore visual communication in your work? You can just take a second and reflect, and you can reflect throughout the rest of the presentation, but I think it's important to frame the purpose of visual communication in your work, and then you can use it more efficiently. Then we can we have covered basically what visual communication means in science communication. Now we can move more into first steps into visualizing something. So the first step is by start to thinking in visual terms. And you may start by thinking about universal visual motifs that have a shared understanding of a visuals among your target audience, basically. So for instance, like a camera can be easily attributed to photos. Lab work can be easily attributed to something like a beaker or any other lab equipment. And tools, you can use like a simple wrench or a hammer to visualize the concept of the tool. And once you have that, you try to think of it in a very in the simplest form, as simple as rectangles, circle, line, or a triangle. And once you start doing that, that's where you can actually start to draw, basically. And that's every visual object is pretty much made of very, very simple shapes. So a camera is basically a few rectangles and circles that are arranged in a particular manner that makes it visually recognizable as a camera. And so for like something like a satellite or even a human being can be derived from a couple of circles. Visual communication foremost is about simplicity, clarity, and fast delivery of information. Reduce the amount of detail to avoid confusion, misinformation, and add details that are only essential to make something visually recognizable. Even something as complex as a reindeer can be reduced to very simple shapes like this, and just to capture the main form of the visual object, and then you can start bringing those shapes together with an outline. But you maintain the shape that it has, the main shape that makes it visually recognizable. And then you add an iconic feature for reindeer that will be its antlers. So with the main form and an iconic feature like antlers, you will have a very recognizable visual element, even with the no details like eyes, noses, or colors. You can still recognize it as a reindeer because you have the form and the main iconic feature of it present, and you can reduce the size and it will still be recognizable. And then now that we have like covered like the basics of how to start visualizing something, we can start looking at the main fundamentals of visual communication. And I have broken it down into three main areas that I try to focus on: is the structure, visual hierarchy, and a focal point. And I will go through each in more elaborately in the following slides. So structure is basically the overall design, the layout of your visual product. So it starts with something we call margins, which is an area around your visual canvas, and it is something that you can use to align things or to anchor things to, but it is mostly to keep things within those boundaries, and you leave a little bit of space around it to create a border and give it a very solid structure. And spacing can be used to like group some of the visual elements together, so your viewer will know which things go together or which things should be looked together. So here the groups are created by using a little bit wider space between the groups rather than as compared to spaces between the elements within the group. So on the title, you can see the space between the icons and the title itself is less than the space between the next section. So that's how you put things closer together to group them together visually, and you keep a little bit more space between those sections to give it some kind of separation. And then balance is to keep all the visual elements balanced throughout the thing. So not one side is heavier or lighter than the other. So here you can see all the visual elements from the logo to the icons to the other two illustrations, and even the QR codes and the EU flag there is placed in a way that it balances each other out, and it creates like a visual stability throughout. So if you have the margin spacing and the balance right, you will have a very stable structure, which is not chaotic for the viewer to see, and it doesn't disorient them. It engages them. It rather engages them. So everything is very stable. The next is visual hierarchy. So this is basically you visually communicating to your viewer what you should look at first. So here, this is a social media card for an event. So since it's an event, the first thing I want the viewer to look at and retain is the date and the place. And that's why it is the biggest thing, size-wise, is the biggest thing on the card, and it grabs the attention immediately. And the next thing is the buildings, but which is like a visual complement to the date and the place, and it just to keep the things more visually engaging. And then the next is the placement, and that's where you see the list of speakers, and it is placed right next to the main focal point, and it takes the most space in the card, but the smaller font kind of like puts it on the third place, third thing that you see. And then you can also use contrast to draw attention, and that's the logo Arctic Passion has the highest contrast, but due to the size compared to the date, it comes at like the fourth place, the fourth thing you will look at on this social media card. And lastly is the flow. So flow is the flow of the things that people look at, that your viewer looks at one by one, and eventually leading to the title, and the title leads back to the main focal point. So it's a circular flow, and it keeps the viewer engaged. It doesn't throw them off, and that's one way to create visual hierarchy. So you have information that can be viewed. The most important information can be viewed first, and then you create different stages throughout. And lastly, a focal point is follows the same rules as visual hierarchy, but it is the most important thing you want to see. And one other thing you can do is to use composition lines, which is basically lines that are directly pointing at the thing that you want the viewer to see first. And here you can see all the lines are converging at the circle, and which holds the title, like what all these numbers mean in this graphic. It's about achievements. So that was the main three areas of fundamentals of visual communication. It is a very dense topic, but this is mostly what I focus on when I'm working or creating visual graphics. And then color contrast. So contrast can be created by many things, but I think creating contrast through color can be the most confusing. But one thing to keep in mind is that creating contrast through color is not just about using different colors, because there's other things that also contributes to contrast, which is also saturation and brightness. So hue is the local color, the pigment of the color, which is like red, purple, blue, green, yellow. But saturation is how much pigment is in that color, how intense is that pigment. So if it gets duller or grayer, that means it's less saturated. It has lesser pigment. And brightness is simply the lightness or darkness of a color. So those two things are even more important than changing just the hue of the color to create contrast. And I can give you a few examples here. where you have the top row have different brightness in addition to different colors. And the bottom row has different colors, but it has same brightness. And you can see if you put the two swatches together from two different rows, the row A has a higher contrast than the row B, because it also changes brightness in addition to the color. Same with the saturation. You can create contrast within the same color just by desaturating it. But if you keep the saturation same and use different colors, it will still have low contrast. And hue, like changing just the color is the least effective way to create contrast. But you can do so if it's really necessary by using the brightest of those colors. The darker they get, the more blend they start blending more. And you can see the difference in the rows C and D. And one quick note on contrast is when you have digital products, light text is easier to read on a dark background versus on print. Dark text is easier to read on a light background, and that's due to emitted light versus reflected light. And that's one of the reasons why dark mode is becoming more popular on screens as well, is because it's easier on the eyes when you have darker backgrounds. Because emitted white light is not easy, but reflected white light is easier to read, especially when you have text on top of it. So just a quick note on that. And now we can I can do a very quick demo on using very simple visual tools in PowerPoint. Let's see if we have here. Am I still sharing the screen or not?
No, not currently.
Not currently. Okay, sorry. Let me go back and share. Here.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So here you can see on any normal PowerPoint, you have this one here. If we can do that. Yes. So on PowerPoint, they have this feature called Designer on the side on the Home tab. And if you have that on, you can start by simply saying and then it will start showing you some options based on that automatically. So it's generating some ideas, and then it will generate ideas based on that theme. So it's a very quick way to start a presentation without any prior design knowledge. And you can just trust it. I think it gives very good ideas. And then there's some other things that you can also do. If you want to add some more graphical element, you can go to Insert tab, and you have here icons. It has a very, very vast library of ready-made icons that you can just grab from. Say, I want an avocado, and it will. And once you add an element, it will give you even more suggestions for that particular slide, how to lay it out. And you can also do. You can format the color of it as well very quickly. You can go here, the color tab, and you can do here, and it turns into green. And it's very simple, and it has quite an extensive library of icons. It has stickers, illustrations, cartoon people, and then also cutout people as well. And of course, it also has stock images that you can just use as well. And then we have Canva here. This is a paid service, but it's also very easy to use. It's a little bit more complex than PowerPoint, but it's also more versatile as well. So you can pick, they have many templates from poster, presentation, Instagram posts, videos, and you can pick pretty much any template, and you can customize it, and you can go in. It's a simple click and change kind of setting. Let's see, version, and it's very easy to edit and move things around as well. Yeah, so it's very simple. And one cool thing about this is that you can have a brand guide built within it as well. So if you have working with the different brands for your organization, you can, or different projects, you can have you can store the colors for each project as well, so everybody can use the same colors. You can store the logos. You can have templates that can be reused over and over again. Fonts, you can create a brand voice, and then you can go pretty extensive with it. But it is a paid service, but very easy to use if you don't have other design skills for more complex programs. Okay, now I think I can go back to my presentation here, which is working with designers. So there's a few things I think that are important, or a few things that you need to at least think about when you're working with designers, which is like having a design brief, having a content, and thinking about the feedback loop. And I'll explain all of these. So a design brief is basically a document where you try to figure out what is your main objective, message, and all the content or the information that you want to communicate in that design product. Think about your target audience, any criteria like standard expectations, any parameters, technical, budget-wise, anything that could arise later on. It's better to figure out before you even approach the designer, and having some examples and sketches ready to communicate to the designer makes it easier as well. And then the content should always be optimized for design in a way that first you do need to figure out the exact information that you want to convey. And then also think about what could be visualized and what could be necessary to be said in text, to differentiate between those two things, and how text and visuals can complement each other as well. And any content that has to be displayed, text that has to be displayed as is on the design, it should be proofread, like for instance list of names or the date or any other things, because all of that kind of like directs how the design will be laid out basically. So if you have a list of speakers, for instance, if two speakers, having two speakers versus having 10 speakers makes a huge difference in how it will be in design. So having that content ready and proofread and approved before you go to the designer will make it much more easier for the design to come out, or to get the results that you're looking for, basically. And then lastly is a feedback loop. Is basically how many people or who will actually contribute to shaping your design product. So who will give comments, or who will provide feedback, who will fact check everything, who will do copy editing, and all of that should be considered and thought about beforehand. And if you have, let's say, a big group of people that will be doing that, a huge feedback loop, then it's ideal to have like at least one designated contact point that will consolidate the feedback for the designer, so we don't get different contradicting feedback as well. Then it's difficult to decide which feedback to take. And also it's also always a good idea to set like number of iterations, like how many revisions that that sets expectation for the designer and also your expectation of how much back and forth you can go as well, and to try to stay within the set criteria and parameters, whatever was decided in the beginning, especially the bigger decisions like what the design is about or what content is going in, and try to stay within it rather than changing it after the process has begun. And one thing I think is important is to understand that the message in itself or whatever you're trying to convey or communicate is more important than, like, for instance, your preference or so that's with what objective versus subjective comments is. It's like your preference out, like the content outweighs your preference of design. So if a design element serves the message more, then you have to give the weight to that decision, basically. So I think it's a fine line between trying to balance that and just to keep in mind, okay, we're trying to communicate something, and all those decisions should be made to make that message more clear and more efficiently. And yes, that's about it. But I think overall, the main idea is that visuals are tools for clarity and not simply to make something visually appealing. Which visually appealing design does help engage the audience, but that should not be the only goal. Keeping things simple is powerful because it avoids misinformation or confusion, or and collaboration improves. When you have your own thinking, visual thinking behind as well. And I think that hopefully this webinar helps you in trying to start thinking visually. And if you bring that to the designer, I think that as a starting point, at least, it helps with the collaboration.
Wow, thank you so much, Hasan.
Yes.
Really, I think really clear presentation for sure, and also helpful in considering a few of these aspects. Maybe I can start with one question, and then, of course, please, dear audience, think about what you would like to ask Hasan. That's your chance. I was wondering, you are a graphic, the artist, the designer, and you're working with scientists a lot who have complex topics to deal with. What is your number one challenge you encounter when you enter a new topic, and how can scientists or researchers help in the process of developing visuals for that?
Yes, I think it's a very good question, and what I try to say if I do come across something like that is like try to explain to me like I'm 8 years old, and I think that's kind of puts us in a place of, okay, how simple we can go, and I think that should at least be the starting point, and then you can add levels of complexity given your target audience, but at least try to simplify it to that level. How do I explain to somebody in third or fourth grade, for instance, and then that's the easiest and the most fastest way to like trying to simplify something new, something that might not be a common knowledge, or something that's not common knowledge to at least general audience, or the designer in question, for instance.
And when you develop, for example, infographics or fact sheets, at what stage are you joining? Should you be a designer, be involved early on to actually get the whole process of thinking and developing, or
yes.
something be ready for you already?
I think it depends on the situation, but if there is a possibility, if the resources allow, if the time allows, then being involved at the earlier stage is always helpful. Then we can direct you in a at least in the right way to achieve a good product. But if the resources don't allow, then I think having a design brief helps a lot. So you try to figure out all those things and we do have like a template where we have like a question and answer for people to do, and then we can start with that as well. And that's for like something that needs very quick turnaround, things that doesn't have higher budgets. Then it's like you tell me what to do and I'll do it. But if you want more collaborative work, if you want to be more creative, then yes, I think it's nice to be involved beforehand.
Yeah. Maybe one follow-up question before I let Lisa come up with the next one, and also everyone else in the room. Like, how many rounds of feedback would you like suggest? Is there also, I can imagine there can be a lot of frustration in the room, and it's a lot of work for you, and you spent hours on something, and then actually the message was meant differently. How
Yes.
many? Like, what? How long would
Well,
you do
I
something?
think generally 3 to 4 is what happens, and it's a comfortable amount of feedback, and I personally don't mind as many feedback rounds as possible, as long as the feedback is clear, as long as I know what the issue is, and then I can. But what happens is sometimes the feedback is not very accurate, or it's not very clear, or it's very vague. Then I have to figure it out on my own what it means, and then I think that's where feedbacks becomes a bit frustrating. But as long as the feedback is clear, I can do as many revisions as long as there's a budget for it.
I see.
Yeah, thank you so much already. There was a question in the chat during your talk from Edgar Duat asking about how do you manage with ambiguity? So, yeah, okay, perfect. We can just let the question ask directly.
Hello. Yeah, hello.
Hi.
We hear you.
Yeah, I have a question, and it's not that my background comprehends a little bit of video game correction, language correction, and some of the issues that are raised from my experience is that you need to convey an univocal message with a sign that goes across languages. So you're saying, well, signs are useful in a two-dimensional sign language. How do you deal with space representation, considering that perspective is mostly a cultural construct? You find in other cultures that they don't have the same notion of perspective or depth using the perspective lines that we know in the West. So my question would be, what is the degree of digital dependence for message transmission, considering space representation and two-dimensional signs that go across languages? Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure I fully understand. Are you talking in terms of like technical drawing things for drawing in perspective, creating depth in drawings?
Yeah, well, you now on digital platforms, you have these kind of volume or cubic drawings that provide a sense of depth
Yes.
and volume in space and forms.
Yeah.
And if you use those forms to convey a message, how can you, how much do you depend on digital message transmission? What I mean is that can you use those signs without digital communication? Can you transcend the digital frame and signify, use your message. Say you print it and you show it to different people, will they understand? Even if you use those kind of representations that are volumes and cubic forms. Maybe I'm going a bit beyond what you have explained.
Yes.
And
No, I usually don't use volumetric shapes in my work. I don't find it extremely necessary. I think, and we have worked in many different regions, and I think if we stick to like fundamentals of visual communication, which I covered here, is usually not an issue. So I think fundamentals of visual communication is it transcends those kind of barriers, and I frankly haven't had an issue with that so far, or even have thought about it to be honest. I hope that answers some part of that question.
Yeah, I was thinking about how literary events are convoked by these kinds of messages, and it makes a difference for some kind of groups that start to gather based on signs and messages that are written, that are printed, but that are at the same time are their first response to messages and signs. And now we're moving into the digital age where people are responding to messages they find on the web, on the internet, and they respond to those. But at the same time, they're being introduced signs and icons that may be ambiguous or could use non-stereotypical, non-traditional ways of representation, like 3D or. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your answer.
Yes.
Yeah. There are actually at least 4 more questions in the Q&A box, so you want to come to them. Thank you so much, Edgar. I would like to raise Alma's question. She asked about concrete advice for making posters. I think you showed a few with this, blank space and
yes,
formatting and priorities, but maybe you want to give your top 3 advices for poster
yes.
making.
So poster. So I think poster, any graphical design should first and foremost you should consider everything that was covered in this webinar for any kind of visual design. But for poster specifically, I think you have to poster can be very informative because of the size if you are making a big poster, or it could be very visually dominant as well, so you can just have one word and a nice design on the back, and it will still work. And so it depends on what your function is for the poster. What are you trying to do? I think that's the first question you should ask, is like, what do I want to achieve with this poster? And then once you have that, do you want to convey a lot of information, or do you want to attract attention to a particular event? Then you just need the title of the event and the date, and you can have a nice little background on it. But if you're making like a science poster, like we usually do, then you have to think about a lot of things. You can you start by thinking about the technical things, like how big the poster is. Is it A3? Is it A0? And that will determine what kind of font you can use. So for any print poster or any print product, a 12-point font is the minimum you should use. For posters, we usually use bigger if the poster is bigger size. But I think if you're just looking for visual inspiration, what I usually do, I just do a very basic Google search and try to find something that appeals to me and to the idea in itself. I can go on forever, so please let me know if I've answered your question in some way.
I think that's good for the top advices. I have more questions now, but let's go with Anna's question, right?
Yes, Anna was asking or first thinking about a very interesting overview, but coming from a researcher's perspective, we often have to deliver in standard formats by funding agencies, for example, with little leeway in terms of creativity. Also, our reports need to comply with certain standards for accessibility. Do you have any advice or examples on what's possible in terms of design and smart visuals in this more strict context?
Yes, there's usually if you have a given standard template for things, I wouldn't suggest being creative with it, because I think that just because any template that you're given is probably pre-designed for a reason. So you just follow that. That's what we usually also do. We have when we're working with the UNEP, they have their own templates, their own fonts, their own colors, their own. So we just follow that. And there's and then there is, as you say, it's very, very limited in terms of creativity, but that's not what we're trying to achieve with that. We're using our skills, our technical skills, to deliver something, and that's how we usually do, and it's still, yeah, it's and I think when you have specific guidelines, my suggestion would always be follow the guidelines. I think that's the easiest and the safest way to go.
Yeah, Anna said he was hoping for a different answer, but yes, thanks. I would still think, like, when you include like any kind of infographics or images, if you, for example, follow the color scheme, I think you can still make it appealing, even though it's a report.
Yes. Yes, I mean, you can only leeway we have with something like that is using photos, because photos they don't use, it's just something captured in time. So that's the only, so you just find the best photos, but we try, even if we're designing graphics, they have a template for it as well, so we follow that. And you can still be creative technically in that as well, but visually you have to stay within those parameters, and that's just the way it is.
Well, I guess your content needs to shine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, content needs to shine. Yes.
I got a question from Kaiser. She asked, is something else you find typically hard in your work to illustrate or to do in general? So it's another question on challenges you encounter.
To illustrate, at this stage, no. It's because there's ways to solve all problems, technically at least. What I do struggle with is sometimes, as you mentioned, either unclear feedback or unclear direction or unclear expectations, or content that doesn't fit with the. But in terms of technical, for illustrations, and I don't think, I don't think there's something that particularly hard at this stage. Yeah.
There was another question from Neri asking about any course on science communication or graphic design you can recommend.
Yes, so it depends on where you would like to start. I like my if you're thinking about like expanding your skills in design in general, I would suggest start with something with fundamentals, which I covered only brief amount of it, but it is because once you have the fundamentals, then you can learn any tool. But you can learn tools, but if you don't have the fundamentals, you won't be able to design anything good, basically. So some courses that are good, I think is one is called New Masters Academy, and they have a free YouTube channel that you can look into. Adobe has very good courses as well in design, and nice thing about those is because you learn the fundamentals, but you also learn the tools that are widely used in design. So for my work, I use Adobe Creative Suite, and that pretty much covers everything in design production, from animation to video editing to Photoshop to illustration. So I would suggest Adobe courses if you want to learn both tools and the fundamentals. But if you really want to start like learning classical drawing and understanding color, I would highly recommend New Masters Academy. That's a really good one. Some of my old teachers teach there, so.
Awesome. And do you think everyone can be a graphic designer? And how long does it take? Or is it mostly talent? And what does it need? Just time, or is it something else?
So sorry, can you repeat the
Do you
question?
think everyone can be a graphic designer?
Yes.
Or does it need? Yes. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. It's a learned skill. Some people have more easier time understanding it, or even some parts of it. So like for me, it was easy for me the drawing part, but it was very difficult for me the coloring part. So it took me I think first 5 years of my professional career just to understand how to use colors. And some people get it very easily. So there's different like learning curves to it, but I think anybody can do it, and I've seen it. So I know for sure anybody can learn. You just have to put in the time and the effort. It does take a lot, but it's achievable.
It's a very positive note here.
Yes.
Thanks for that. And we have also a comment that we are, of course, happy to share our contacts here on social media. So if you want to share yours, please put it in the chat. I do have another question, even though it would be a good way to end, but I do have a question regarding, future development. What's your take on using AI in this context? Yep.
Yeah, so so AI, we have I have tried it because it is an emerging technology, but it currently does not it does not work efficiently in a way because it's very difficult to make changes. So for technical reasons, a lot of technical reasons, it does not work. Also, it misses because design is more than just outputting a bunch of images. It takes a lot of thinking. It takes a lot of critical thinking as well, and AI, I don't think it's at this stage that it can do that. And it's also like, and when you come to like things like storytelling, for instance, right, which is beyond technique, it's a very human thing. Storytelling is based on emotional human experience, basically, and that is something that is learned through lived experience. So which I don't think AI can or it hasn't done so far. So but I think it's very hard to say where it will go. But for now, I think it cannot replace designers at the moment.
I would have one other question, and then I think we are good to end this meeting. You showed in the very ending the Arctic Passion achievements with numbers and then text. So
Yes.
maybe 12 milestones or reports as one of the results. And then you had, in terms of graphical design, a dark background to the numbers and a lighter one, behind the text.
Yes.
Is this was this an example, or is this also something to take away in terms of where I get the attracted first on the picture?
Yes. I'm glad you pointed out because that could be confusing because I'm saying one thing and then doing another. But there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But it's
Sure.
important to understand because I did also, like if you notice in my presentation, I did have also slides with some of the slides were on white background when I was talking about color. And I did that because if I did that on a colored background, then it will it will contradict with so it won't be the color palettes won't be very apparent. So that's some of the things that we do. I think for that specific graphic, it was requested to have a lighter background, and it does happen sometimes, and I try to explain, but a lot of people still like lighter backgrounds. But I think because they don't take into the account that if something is being looked at for a longer period of time, then it becomes having a light background on a digital screen becomes unpleasant to the eye. So I think because when you're making something or you're contributing to something, then you just have this idea, but you're not thinking about the practical reasons. But yeah, that was it wasn't my choice, but it was requested. But there can be exceptions to the rule when the dark background just doesn't work, or even for print, maybe you do need a dark background for posters, for instance. We do that. We have dark background because it is at a larger scale, and you can have it flat on the wall, so it doesn't have glares and reflections, or if it has less amount of text as well, right? Because that's what makes it difficult to read either way. So, and that's when you have text, then I think when you have a large amount of text, then it's very important to think about what background is it? Is it going to be printed? Is it digital? And yeah.
Thank you so much for the clarification. I think there's a wealth of knowledge we can continue talking
Yes.
on. And I think it's interest for many, either on the site or when they actually do work on graphics themselves. So thank you so much. I think we're coming to the end now of this online seminar and dialogue. Hasan, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and presenting your work, and it was a real pleasure to have you. And also the audience, thank you for being part of this last Arctic Passion online seminar today. It was a real pleasure to have you. And I guess we wish you a great rest of your day or night, wherever you are, and happy holidays. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
happy holidays, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Yes.
And thanks, Hasan.